Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Tom School of Life Weekly Update. I'm your Community Director, Kevin Dolan, joined here by David Moore, Barbara Williams, and Jeremy Evans, your facilitators. Today, we want to talk about member-led calls and webinars. So we've got some folks setting up one-off webinars where they address some kind of topic, some particular thing that's of interest to them. We've also got guys and gals setting up ongoing calls, weekly group calls, where they get together and they discuss some topic. As a matter of fact, I mean, the school, the accountability groups started as a member-led call led by member Jeremy Evans, who's here with us. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about the genesis of the idea, how that occurred to you, and what it took as far as like getting it rolling.
Right. So this involves a lot of self-confession. Or is there any other kind of confession? Not clear. Kevin knows exactly what he's getting into here too, which ultimately goes back to crediting him. So good move. Good move.
It's chess, not checkers, man.
Right. So in the very early days of School of Life, when you all were just a gleam in your mother's eyes, et cetera, School of Life is mainly webinars and a MeWe group. And the launch was excellent. The offering was a touch ambiguous, but I said, okay, I like Tom. I bet people who also like Tom are kind of interesting. I'd really like to network with those people. Once I figured out what MeWe was, I realized that was impossible, at least for me, right? I could not use MeWe in a meaningful way. I don't use Facebook, et cetera. So I approached Tom. Tom was receptive to the idea of a forum. Next thing you know, we have a forum. And then I said, well, I really want to network between businesses. So why don't we have a business directory? Next thing you know, we have a business directory. By the way, Tom is open to ideas. I think that's going to be a really good theme to this call is if you can dream it, then utilize it, right? Make it happen. Tom is a very generous guy and he sincerely cares about his audience. He wants to best serve you. He wants people to get what they want from this offering. But Tom is but one man. Tom cannot do everything, nor is Tom leading every call or et cetera. So eventually, I heard a particular podcast. I don't remember the name. It was something show, maybe like an outdoor survival, something, a woods show. Not clear to me. Just totally escaped my mind. And there was this guy, Kevin. I figured Kevin, very familiar name. I'm sure this is a canny, upstanding gentleman. And he was talking about his most recent business and community exit group. What actually happened here, I don't think Kevin knows fully. But of course, Kevin was talking with Tom about how his membership community is blooming and blossoming and how they do all these wonderful things. But what really happened is Jayhawk, shout out to Jayhawk. That's, of course, a pseudonym, even though I am naming my next son Jayhawk. He said, hey, I still have a discount for exit. And there's a lot of cool stuff going on. It's kind of like this, but it's cooler. And I said, what? It can't be cooler than this. At this point, I've got stake, right? I'm like, I've made 2/3 of the site or something at this point. I want my thing to be cool, to the extent that it is my thing. Of course, it's Tom's, but so I joined Exit. Kevin appropriately says as a corporate spy. Now, did Tom hire me as a corporate spy? That is a different question. No, he did not. But Exit was doing these accountability calls. They had, I think, 4 or 5 a week. They have, forgive me, Kevin. They have 4 or 5 a week. And the level of rapport and camaraderie between the people on these calls was completely unprecedented. It was exactly what I would want anywhere between like-minded people. And I mean that from knitting to libertarianism. Absolutely anybody who has common interests and the desire to support and help each other, this is the modality to do it. I could see that immediately. All these people knew and loved each other and were willing to go the extra mile.
So Exit is, in fact, a libertarian knitting community. So
that is correct. And by the way,
everything you'd want from K to L. Yeah.
Avid listeners will know that Anarchy Death Sticks, the founder of Anarchy Death Sticks, which is a libertarian knitting community, has been on Tom Woods' show. That's one of my favorite episodes there. So I sent an email back to Tom. I said, Kevin is doing some really cool stuff. You heard of this guy? And he said, oh, yeah, I've had him on my show. I said, oh, right. And then from there, we implemented the chat. We worked on all kinds of video calling solutions. That was a fun technical process for me. And Kevin began organizing the groups. Now, where's the most demand? for libertarians who want to improve their lives. It's business. Thus, here we are. We have a lot of business calls. The demand for homesteading, for content creation, for tech, for all manner of things is much more mercurial and limited. And accordingly, we do business calls. We do a lot of business calls. I think we're at 18 a week. But, right. To prove the concept of Tom, I started a business mastermind group. Without Kevin's guidance and firm hand, it was a lot of fun. I met a lot of wonderful people. The calls were 3 hours once a week because I couldn't shut anybody up. And it's not inaccurate. It's not that I wanted to shut anybody up. It's that I wanted to know everything about their lives and their kids and the latest report card. And like, oh, you're allergic to peanuts? Oh my God. So I've reformed, and that's all thanks to Kevin. Now we have a much more succinct version at about 90 minutes per session at about 10, 15 people. Obviously, we have constraints and things that limit and control the duration, thank God. And people, it's exactly as I described in Exit. People love each other. They care for each other. Oftentimes, people need to be going group to group to maybe pitch something or find other people to network. And they say, I can't, because what's going to happen to Michael? I have to know the next chapter. You know, where's Bobby? Bobby hasn't been back this week. I hope he's okay. You know, his kid got sick, but it can't be that. It's a beautiful thing. And then you stack on top of that, you know, the real and genuine interest and concern for business. Anyway, I've talked far too long.
Well,
get the premise.
What I want to draw out from that, in addition to just a fantastic exit infomercial, thank you, is what I was actually driving at is you were a member like everybody else, and you had some things that you wanted to talk about, and you put it out there in the forum, and you also created the forum, but you put it out there that you wanted to have this conversation, and you sort of took who came and started to build something with it. And I think that like maybe we just need to convey that like there's permission to do that. This is voluntarist, you know, we're all doing what we choose and what we take initiative to do. And you turned that into from one group to 18. So like that's it basically, we're kind of looking for what works. I mean, this is this iterative exploratory process. So like we don't have, for example, like a homesteading or preparedness call. And if somebody wants that, they can go grab it and run with it and see who else is interested. We don't actually know who else is interested. Maybe there's tons. And that basically, you know, you can start to build like the kernel of your own community within the group. It's a great place to find sort of your tribe. You probably like there's like 1,500 people, 2,000 people, something like that. You know, all of those people are not going to be your like intimate tribe. We're just, our brains aren't big enough for that. But it's a good place to find that tribe. Barbara, I'm interested in what, I mean, you started the fitness call sort of on your own recognizance. You just went and did it. And tell me about what that's been like in gathering those people.
Well, that's been really fun. I just had a really good call this morning, actually, where, you know, people bring their vulnerabilities, their struggles. They talk about, man, I tend to restrict, and then I can go into binging, or eating's emotional. Like, we talk about some tough stuff, and we all share what works for us. And the general thing that I like to push for people is just to find what works for them, keep experimenting, keep trying new things. So that's been amazing to see, and we grow a little bit. We had a little bump in January, but we're a pretty strong group, and again, tight knit. Just like Jeremy was saying, everybody is really invested in everyone else. I have a yoga buddy in there because yoga is not the most fun thing to do in my mind, so we push each other to do that. So we accomplished that. I know Jeremy's disagreeing with me right now. but yeah, we all push each other in really healthy ways. I think that's been really fun to see as time has gone on.
Yeah, we sort of envision a situation where eventually there'll be enough people in the fitness call that you can't really do one fitness call, and then you have two, and then you have three, and maybe it starts to be, maybe there's some strength training people, and maybe there's some, cardio and whatever, or diet, whatever it is. You sort of bifurcate as the need arises. And so basically, I mean, it can go as far as there's interest in it. David, I'm interested in your experience with that and like stuff that you've seen work as well.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with someone earlier today. They're thinking about a podcast on a particular topic and was questioning whether or not they were qualified. And I borrowed the phrase that we've talked about, is your obsession is your qualification. Just merely your passion and your interest in this topic is so far above average that the average listener would be enthralled to hear all the things that you've got to say about this particular topic. And I think as a precursor to a podcast, for those that have maybe a podcast in their future or a content creation channel, the beginnings of that maybe is a mixer call, or a call around a specific topic for which you are just simply passionate and well-versed and can be a facilitator of sorts around that topic. I've also wanted to remind people of a show that existed on the internet a while back. It was called The Random Show with Tim Ferriss and Kevin Rose. And if you remember that show, it was a great video podcast that people would watch because it just had things that Kevin and Tim were interested in. And they would walk through one by one the foods they were eating, the health practices they were trying, the things they were invested in. And I think a lot of times in the accountability calls, we have the succinct framework that Jeremy described, but oftentimes there's this desire for social. But we've had a productive 90 minutes. We've all got to get back to our days and execute the plans we've made. And I think there's a real need, just like in any school setting or any social setting, to have hallway time or lunchtime or after school time. And if you're like me or anyone on this call, which I know you are, if there's not the group that you need, you're going to create it. And certainly that sort of demanding, it shall be so energy is expected and nurtured here in the School of Life.
Yeah, I think there's a huge maybe hesitation from a lot of people about like, I have to be an expert to run that call. And I mean, in my group, I run a tech call. I did an 8-week Python boot camp. That's the extent of my tech knowledge. What I do is I find a guy who really is an expert, and I just make sure he's there. And actually, as a matter of fact, even him with his like 99th percentile breadth of experience, there's still a lot of things where he has to say, well, I know a guy, or I heard about whatever. Nobody is. I talked about this when we talked about networking a while back. If you take on a project that's too big for you, you'll quickly realize that like everybody has to make phone calls. Even I had a guy who his ambition was to build an indoor soccer stadium. And it's like, yeah, he knows nothing about building an indoor soccer stadium, but also like the developer whose job it is to build sports venues, he's got to call like 50 people to make that happen. He's got to get all kinds of expertise in the game because just no one person is big enough. Their brain is not big enough to contain everything you need to know to build one of these big projects. And I think especially starting out with these broad topics like fitness, like entrepreneurship, the point is not to be an expert. The point is to be really like a good listener and have a good way to attract and hang on to the right people. And so like, I actually think that in this room, I might be the newest in the game as far as like having run businesses and having tried things. And it kind of doesn't matter because I just find the people who they need to talk to, whatever expertise they need. So I think that's good on the accountability groups. What about webinars? Like, I know that some of these are like officially announced by Tom, but have we had webinars that have just been somebody wanted to talk about something in the group?
We have. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Just briefly before we move on, I obviously tried to take a really active role in an exceptional way with Tom's School of Life. The reality is Tom wants to serve you. you who are listening to the sound of this podcast. And no one, including Tom, knows the absolute optimal path to get there. Right. And Tom, being a clever guy who has a genuine interest in serving the people that he wants to serve, wants to try a lot of things to be able to reach that optimal path. It's something akin to competition in the free market. In terms of webinars and making your own call, I would very much treat Tom's School of Life as a blank, as your canvas. You have around 2,400 libertarians. What can you do with that? What comes to mind? I have a marketing agency. The first thing that came to mind to me would be a libertarian client would be kind of cool. I'm curious what that's like to have a libertarian client. And that's the action I took, is to achieve my own self-interest in that direction, and hopefully inadvertently benefited everybody around me. I really encourage you guys to do the same exact thing. Odds are, if you have an interest, it is shared.
I think there's also a fair number of introverted people who just the effort of keeping time and passing the mic is sounds exhausting to them, and that's right. Okay. What I would say to those people is, in fact, I have a guy in my group who is a very, very introverted guy. He's interested in a dating call, and he doesn't particularly want to run it. That's fine. He put it out there. Hey, do you guys want to do a dating call? And then a couple of guys piped up and said, yeah, sure, that sounds fun. And so, like, I think there's a huge component of this that's just putting out there what you want, mm-hmm. and seeing what sticks. I've also, to be honest, I've had calls that some guy put on and people didn't show up, and then mm-hmm. it sort of dies in the vine, and then you move on to the next thing. And that is also okay. Like, it's just sort of exploring the space. But I would say 9 times out of 10, if there's one person interested, there's at least half a dozen. And that's in my group, which is, I think, a tenth, not even a tenth the size of this group. So
I would also add to that, if you do start a call and only 3 people show up or 2 people, like, go deep with those people, have a really good conversation, right, and keep having it, because they grow. They do grow. I think the content creation call was, maybe 3 or 4 people when it started. And now that it's getting stronger and stronger each week, and, the people are getting more consistent. So I would also say stick with it, even if you think that, oh, barely anyone showed up. I think that it's worth dragging it out a little bit and seeing what comes of it.
Yeah. 3 to 4 can be a great conversation. Mm-hmm. And you can, especially in the case of like, around Christmas time, we started to have like really light calls where, just a handful of people, but they would have these really deep, and it would go really, because you don't feel the pressure of like, I'm on my clock. It's like, we got all the time we need. And you can build much deeper connections that way. So yeah, I totally think that's it can grow. And even if it doesn't,
Yeah.
It's like to think about the idea of, people go back to school. I'm going back to school for a reason. They go back because they want to be in a place again where they can try things, where the stakes are lower, where there's a supportive environment, where they can say, look, I'm just a student. I don't know how it's going to go, right? This play that I'm in doesn't really count. This test, this book I'm reading is just exploring. Well, I think there's a lot of energy here like that, where we can say, look, be on a podcast, or put on a call, and don't necessarily know how it's going to go, but this is the place for experimentation. And if there's something that you've considered doing out there in the big world, bring it to this smaller world and try it here with the supportive audience. And if it doesn't go well, we'll hit the Men in Black button and we'll all forget it for you, and we'll let you show up to the next call and start over again. So this is the space for that.
Yeah.
I want to say amen. I think that is the most important point that can be made, is you have a microcosm of supportive people that you probably also care about and trust, just by virtue of all knowing and appreciating Tom, right? That's a very narrow subset of the population. Meeting a complete stranger in Tom's School of Life, you feel like, okay, this might be a second cousin of mine, something like that. right? Immediately there's at least a glimmer of connection. And it is, even and especially for business, I'm going to add, and this is, I think, maybe our transition into the webinars. People generate a ton of business between each other in Tom's School of Life. Having your own call would be a really perennial way to do that. You have to put in more work than a webinar, which is what I'm about to compare it to. But you'll build deeper relationships, and you'll be able to understand people in a much better way. If you're offering a service that's broadly applicable, or maybe even applicable to the subset, which is libertarians, there's literally no other place in the world where you can do this, where you can so easily find new leads and prospects. And, many people harbor ideas that, okay, if I'm selling somebody, I'm committing a great sin. I hope that what you're selling, that what you're doing in your work is of mutual benefit, right? So let's bury our libertarian wrong thing, put that aside. I just wanted to address that briefly. And then you are helping potentially hundreds of people out of the thousands in this group, providing a service that actually integrates you even more deeply, makes you even more valuable part of the community. And that momentum builds and builds and builds. And those people have networks and they have referrals. It is a beautiful little incubator. If you know an actual business incubator, they don't come with a preset demographic and customer base that you can endlessly pitch to and are actually pretty likely to buy from you. Anyway, I want to move on to the webinars. I know for a fact, everyone who's done a webinar has some self-interest in it. Again, welcome to libertarianism. Those that are new. We have some sort of self-interest. We have something that we believe is worth selling and is of value. Everybody who has done one of these webinars has sold from their webinars. There's obviously a lot of variability there. That's extremely valuable. If you have something good to offer to the group, already you have tacit permission, more or less. I mean, there's a process, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if we're doing timeshares yet. We'll get clearance from Tom, right?
Well, yeah, I wanted to address that. Like, there's the permission that you need to start your own call or to schedule a webinar for yourself is nothing. You can just go do it. You can post in the chat or in the forum, hey, I'm doing a call on timeshares and who'd like to come. That as far as I know, is completely allowed. And Tom can correct me if I'm wrong, but like the only permission that you need to sell or to do a webinar or to start a group is if you want Tom to like announce it. You want us to put it on the calendar. You want to make it like an official component of the school, the way that the entrepreneurship calls and the content call and the fitness call, the way those things are integrated into our messaging, into what we talk about. But I mean, if you can get people to come to your other call, then do it. It's great. So Barbara, tell us about the calls that we have currently that we've already got running week to week.
I would love to. So we first have a copywriting call every week, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. The cool thing about the copywriting call that I will add now is that you don't need to, you can go if you're interested in copywriting. Great. That's the main goal of the call. However, if you are a business owner and you have copy that you would like a group of both amateur and professional copywriters to give you feedback on, they want that. They want you to show up and bring your copy and get some free feedback. It helps everyone. So that's a really cool place to go. And I've been recommending that to people who are struggling with conversion rates and all that kind of fun stuff. There's a content creation call also Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Those are slightly staggered, so you could possibly go to both. That one's been going well. That's, podcasters, social media, posting people, YouTubers, all kinds of fun stuff there. There are tech calls on Thursdays and Fridays. Do you guys remember the times of those? I don't.
Not off the top of my head, but
yeah, they're
in the tech call channel.
Yes. Yeah. Tech call, look up the tech call or reach out to your facilitator. We'll figure it out with that. And then there are mixer calls that are happening at various times. Go to the mixer calls channel in Rocket Chat to find the times for those. Those are not as structured as all the other calls. They're just kind of fun hangouts. So I think those can be really fun for networking. And the most exciting for me personally is there is a women's call that's being organized. And the first one, we don't know how frequent it will be, but the first one will be on Saturday, February 18th at 11 a.m. Eastern. So that is for the ladies. So that'll be a good time.
It's about time.
Right?
I can't imagine the experience of being we know the demographics. I'm not even sure if I need to say it, right? I mean, in Tom's School of Life, we actually have a fair representation of women considering the skew of libertarian demographics, right?
Yeah.
I was impressed in Orlando. It was a lot of ladies there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Tom is
it about
even-handed in his audience.
Is it 3-1? Is that
honestly?
I don't know
it may
if it's
be
even that good, but yeah, maybe it is. That's funny.
That's not something we could run the stats on, but God, would I love to. That's fascinating. I think Tom probably has slightly more women in his audience than the actual libertarian stat overall. It's important to realize, this Tom has Liberty Classroom. Liberty Classroom is an amazing product. And I mean that with full sincerity. It's an incredible amount of course material. First off, this is 2 lifetimes. It's all professors, qualified PhD professors, and it's all from a perspective that you're not going to get elsewhere. And it's dirt cheap. Liberty Classroom, great product. Go buy it now. Use the affiliate code Jeremy Evans or whatever, right? It's not the most professor-led or whatever, expert-led thing in the world, but it's lectures. And you watch the lectures, but you watch them at your own pace. Tom's School of Life is the most self-directed product that you can imagine. You come in, yes, we're going to try to guide you to figuring out how to use the website, right? I hope that we're successful in that regard. Yes, we're going to guide you into one of the groups so you can get face-to-face intimacy and actually meet people in as real of a way as we can over the internet. But nobody can hold your hand past that point. Nobody can start your business for you or help you make 5 or 10 libertarian friends. Nobody else is going to look up the people near you to have a barbecue, which, by the way, everyone in Colorado is getting together to have a barbecue now. I don't know how this happened, but it spread like a virus. And now I think it might be at my house. So I need to kind of know about this. All the resources, and maybe more, right? Maybe we can add resources. Please let us know if there's something to add, but there's a lot of resources and it's too much for us to give you a little, do this and that and this and that. You have to really take on an autonomous bent to get the most out of this. But the potential is staggering, absolutely staggering. It's the biggest network.
When Tom talks about, like, I'm tired of talking about libertarian theory and complaining about politics and now it's time to go do something. It's like those aren't separate questions. Instead it's time to go execute on the theory. It's time to go execute on what you actually believe about how you're supposed to operate in this world. You're supposed to be autonomous. You're supposed to be self-directed. A man chooses, a slave obeys, as we learned from Bioshock.
You know more of it. After StarCraft, I got nothing, man. That's the only one I know.
That's the only libertarian text of which I'm personally familiar is Bioshock.
We have Rand, maybe Hayek, Mises, and Bioshock. Right. That's hilarious. I don't even know. Barbara, do you know? Is it actually libertarian?
Bioshock? I mean, there's some undertones there.
Themes.
There you go. Yeah.
Tropes.
All right, so this is our first call to engagement. Welcome, guys. We are on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, kill it down below, whatever. Hit the bell, blah blah blah.
Smash
Leave a comment.
The
like button as well, and the dislike button if you can. If you can get both, you get a bonus.
Hey,
leave a comment at Bioshock.
We have not gotten one dislike yet.
Oh, that's
so
a call
let's
out.
keep it.
That'll get.
Yeah. Well, you just heard from Kevin. He thinks Bioshock is libertarian, and as they say, 2 libertarians, 3 opinions. So I guarantee you that there is not. Some of you know the origin of that quote, and you're wrong. Somebody will leave a comment about how Bioshock is fascist. Somebody else will say it's diversity and inclusion. That's what we need to boost the algorithm. Thank you so much.
Yeah, get mad. Please get mad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. Well, yeah, I think that we leave it there, but yeah, come start a call. Come start a webinar. Talk to us about your thing. If it's just a topic that you want to learn more about, like, I mean, I have people who they want to figure out, well, it's a dating guy. It's not that he has the answers on dating. He wants to go find solutions. And so he's like, let's get a room together to solve some problems together. And that's ultimately the orientation of this whole thing. It's not about, you don't have to have it all figured out. We're going to figure it out together. So thanks so much for being here, guys. Really appreciate your thoughts. And we'll see everybody next week.